3M Committee Chair will now call the meeting to order. I want to thank the public as well as the members who's joined us today as we start this very important legislation. As the committee chair, I'd like to take a point of personal privilege to address something that happened. I think I owe it to this committee to let you all know how offensive this was. Recently, a reporter took it upon himself to do a newspaper story making negative comments toward the House 3M committee, indicated that we did not take on legislation that was relevant or important. I contacted that reporter as well as his superiors to show them and to ensure that that was not true. I think it was highly offensive to the committee. A lot of members came up to me and had conversations about it, and we addressed the issue. And if that reporter does not think nurse anesthetists, anesthesiologists, who put you to sleep and who wake you up is important that this committee have jurisdiction over and had debate about, then he is truly wrong. If that reporter does not think that today, as we debate and vote up or down medical marijuana that would change the lives of many people in this state, whatever your opinion may be, then he is extremely wrong. The worst thing that a reporter can do or a news outlet can do is send out inaccurate information that does not help the public. And that's what this person did. And I want to thank his superiors, the individuals who's in charge of him for correcting that. And hopefully they called his hand on it and that will not happen again. Now, because the editors and people in charge were very supportive and did the right thing, I would not call that particular news outlet name. Thank you for this time, and now we will now start the meeting for official business. The first report will come from Subcommittee 1 from Representative Chris Hart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. Thank you for calling this meeting for this very important legislation that we have before here in South Carolina in front of our citizens that we hope will provide much needed relief to our citizens of the state of South Carolina. We have S150 and S150. The report from S150 came out of the subcommittee favorable with an amendment. This is the South Carolina Compassionate Care Act, which would create a well-regulated medical cannabis program to allow seriously ill individuals to use medical cannabis when recommended by their physician and dispensed by a therapeutic cannabis pharmacy. 37 states, including Alabama, Arkansas, Florida, Louisiana, Mississippi, give their residents this medical freedom. The South Carolina Senate passed S150 28-15. Also like to recognize that this particular bill, out of all the states that currently have medical cannabis, is the most restrictive and has the most parameters, guidelines, barriers, guardrails in place. To qualify for the program, to qualify, patients must have at least one qualified medical condition and a medical certification issued by a physician with whom they have a bona fide relationship. The patients must apply to the DHEC, which is Department of Health and Environmental Control, for a registration card. The physicians and podiatrists with advanced training and experience must certify and complete a cannabis-specific continuing medical education course. Before certifying patients, physicians must conduct a thorough in-person evaluation, including a history of the illness, past medical history, any substance abuse history, which includes drugs, illegal drugs, controlled drugs, and even alcohol. Limitation: smoking cannabis will remain illegal, as would raw cannabis paraphernalia used to smoke cannabis. Patients and caregivers will not be allowed to grow their own cannabis. A physician may specify the amount of cannabis products their patients could obtain in each 14-day period. Or the physician could choose to have a default limit of 1,600 milligrams of THC ingested, such as edibles. Medical cannabis products would be dispensed by therapeutic cannabis pharmacies overseen by a pharmacist in charge and licensed by both the Board of Pharmacy and DHEC. Pharmacists must complete a continuing education on medical cannabis, included related to dosing and cannabinoid profiles. Some of the safeguards that the bill has in place, DHEC would create regulations include seed to sale tracking, order mitigation, record keeping, oversight, security, health and safety, transportation, employee training, capital requirements, packaging and labeling. DHEC will also restrict advertising, logos, signage, and ensure that businesses have discreet and medical appearances. The local governments may regulate the location, the hours, numbers of medical cannabis businesses. They also could completely prohibit a dispensary from operating in that particular location. Patients could apply to DHEC to designate a caregiver to assist them with medical use of cannabis, such as picking up their cannabis from a dispensary. Employers may continue to prohibit employees from working while under the influence or using cannabis at or doing work. As far as taxation and fees, DHEC will determine application and registration fees for cardholders and medical cannabis businesses. The fees must be enough to cover the regulatory costs. Cannabis will be taxed at the same rate as non-prescription medications, which is 6%, with a local option tax that would also apply to the medical cannabis. After covering regulatory costs, revenue will be distributed as follows: 3% for research to training to improve detection of impaired driving, 10% for alcohol and drug abuse prevention and education, early intervention, and treatment, 5% to SLED, 5% to medical cannabis, 2% to drug safety education, and 75% to the general fund. One of the most important parts of this bill is that this law will only be in place for 6 years, which means it would expire at the end of 2028 unless the legislature decides to reenact it. And that was to be along with the report, we did have a recommendation of the amendment that came out favorable. The subcommittee amendment makes non-substantive technical changes to the bill to correct misspellings, grammar, style issues. It also revises the bill to ensure consistency in terminology and enforcement provisions. It also makes clear that the Board of Pharmacy has the same regulatory authority over therapeutic cannabis pharmacies and pharmacists as they do over other pharmacies. And pharmacists are permitted or licensed by the board. The amendment also authorizes podiatric foot and ankle surgeons who are board certified or qualified by the American Board of Foot and Ankle Surgery and have graduated from an accredited 3-year residency program in podiatric medicine, reconstructive rear foot and ankle surgery to issue written certifications for medical cannabis. Mr. Chair, that is the report from Subcommittee 1, along with the amendment. So at this time, in addition to the report from the committee, we also have some other amendments that Representative McGarry may have, file an amendment, and Representative Dabby also have. So with that, Mr. Chair, before we start, one of the things I want to do is, we've been through a very long road on this, probably close to 8 to 9 years on this. So in the interest of legislative economy, what I would like to do is invoke the previous question on the Rule 8.6 and call for the vote.
Okay, it's moving properly second. We will now take a roll call, show of hands. Those in favor? Okay, Yes, sir.
Just a question, so we know what we're voting for, under this rule. Was this a reference made to the committee rule or a House rule?
It's made for the House rule.
Okay. I was not under the impression that there were any time limits on amendments in committee. The House rules do set time limits, and cloture does affect those time limits. So, are we imposing time limits here?
Yes, sir. We abide by the House rules.
Okay.
All those in favor, let it be known by a show of hands.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Okay, all opposed?
1, 2, 3.
Okay, now we're now abiding by Rule 8.6. Okay. Okay, now we'll go back to, okay. Okay, now we understand that no more amendments can be made, can be considered based on what we just did. For each amendment proposal, we allow 3 minutes on each amendment that is already on the desk. Opponents have 3 minutes, proponents have 3 minutes. Okay. And after all the amendments, we will have 2 hours to debate, up to 2 hours to debate. 1 hour for the opponents, 1 hour for the proponents. Okay, Mr. Hart?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I do have an amendment that I've discussed with the sponsor of the bill. This particular amendment I do have an amendment, thank you, and I've also discussed this amendment with the speaker, with the sponsor of the bill. So at this time, I would ask that, based off of the amendment that we talked about with the subcommittee, that we would call a roll on that.
Okay, we'll call a roll on the subcommittee amendment by a show of hands. Okay, all those in favor of the subcommittee amendment, show of hands.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 in favor.
Okay. Opposed? Okay. Chair continue to recognize Mr. Hart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My second amendment deals with correctional facilities. One of the things that we discuss is that sometimes the Department of Juvenile Justice and some of our local jails and detention centers do not qualify as correction facilities, and they're not always determined to be correction facilities. So at this time, I would like to offer the amendment, and the amendment that I would like to offer, possessing cannabis or cannabis products or otherwise engaging in the medical use of cannabis products in any correctional facility in a local, county, or department jail or Department of Juvenile Justice shall be illegal. And I would like to call the roll.
Okay, with show of hands. Okay, all those in favor.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 in favor.
Okay, all those opposed? Okay, here and now.
Now, Ms. McGarry presents amendment number 2.
Okay, the chair recognizes Ms. McGarry as she presents amendment number 3.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This amendment simply is consistent with all licensed professionals such as doctors and nurses, and it states that the applicant must undergo state criminal records to support by fingerprints and state law enforcement. So all we're doing is amending the bill to make sure that we have a copy of fingerprints for state criminal records and a national criminal records check for the applicants. And then also we're getting SLED out of the business of providing consulting services for private businesses and making sure that we have a private security expert in good standing. So that's all that this amendment does. And I ask for passage of this.
Great. Chair recognize Mr. Hill.
I actually have a motion. I wanted to move that we divide the question since I think there are several things that this amendment does related to criminal background checks and so forth are probably, you know, pretty standard changes for consistency with other licensing bills that we've passed. But there are other things going on in this amendment as well. And so I would like to move that we divide the question into each section of the amendment. There are 4 sections of the amendment. I would like us to divide that and have 4 votes on each section separately.
Okay, the chair will now recognize the opportunity to vote on division of the amendments. Okay, all in favor of Mr. Hill's recommendation, let it know by a show of hands.
1, 2, 3, 4 in favor.
Okay, opposed?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8.
Okay, the committee declined to divide. Good. Pending motion is on the proposed amendment. Ms. McGarry, you finished? You finished? You were finished? You completed? Okay, all right. Okay, now, let me know by a show of hands on them, if you're in support of the amendment.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in favor.
Okay, opposals to the amendment.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, all right. So the amendment is adopted. Okay, we're gonna have an announcement from Director.
Members of the committee, your amendments are numbered, and you've just gone through amendments 1 through 3. The remaining amendments before you are in the big binder, and those are labeled V. Dabney Proposed Amendment 1 through 129. I could not renumber those in time for the committee, so even though it starts with number 1, we recognize that it's actually starting with amendment number 4.
Okay, the chair now recognizes Representative Dabney.
Thank you, Chairman Howard. Okay, my first amendment would be amend the bill and as it, if amended, by striking all after the enacting words and inserting, notwithstanding any other provision of law, research may be conducted by the University of South Carolina College of Pharmacy and School of Medicine, the Medical University of South Carolina, or an established pharmaceutical company located in the state that is approved by the Department of Health and Environmental Control to be used in connection with medical cannabis research and development, including use for clinical trials regarding the effectiveness of cannabis products at treating symptoms and conditions that are not debilitating medical conditions pursuant to this article. Data collection from qualifying patients who voluntarily provide information related to dosage, efficacy, and side effects, clinical trials, observational studies, or both on the dosage, efficacy, and side effects of medical cannabis, and the publication of dosage recommendations based upon medical conditions or symptoms, modes of administration, and cannabinoid profiles. Any questions?
Okay, any questions or comments as relate to Representative Dabney's amendment. Okay, the pending question, adoption of the amendment. All in favor of adopting the amendment, let me know by show of hands.
1, 2, 3.
All opposed?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Okay, the amendment fails. Our next amendment, Mr. Dabney.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, amend the bill as and if amended by striking all after the enacting words and inserting the following. Academic Medical Center means a research hospital that operates a medical residency program for physicians and conducts research that involves human subjects and other hospital research programs conducting research as a subrecipient with the Academic Medical Center as the prime awardee. Approved source means a provider approved by the United States Food and Drug Administration, which produces cannabis that has been manufactured and tested in a facility approved or certified by the United States Food and Drug Administration. Cannabis means all parts of the plant, of the cannabis genus of plants, whether growing or not. The seeds of the plant, the resin extracted from any part of the plant, and every compound, manufacture, salt, derivative, mixture, or preparation of the plant, its seeds or resin. Cannabis does not mean the mature stalks of the plant, fiber produced from the stalks, oil or cake made from the seeds of the plant, a product approved as a prescription medicine by the United States Food and Drug Administration, or the sterilized seeds of the plant that are incapable of germination. Debilitating medical condition means a diagnosis of one or more of the following that also results in a debilitated condition. And those would be cancer, multiple sclerosis, a neurological disease or disorder, including epilepsy, glaucoma, post-traumatic stress disorder, Crohn's disease, sickle cell anemia, ulcerative colitis, cachexia or the wasting syndrome, autism, severe or persistent nausea in a person who is not pregnant that is related to end-of-life hospice care, or who is bedridden or homebound because of a condition. A chronic medical condition causing severe and persistent muscle spasms, a chronic medical condition causing severe and persistent pain, a terminal illness with a life expectancy of less than 1 year in the opinion of the person's treating physician. Physician means a doctor of medicine or doctor of osteopathic medicine licensed by the South Carolina Board of Medical Examiners.
Okay, thank you. Representative Dabney, any comments in opposition to the amendment? Okay, hearing none. Pending question, all in favor of the amendment, let it be known by a show of hands and to count it.
1, 2, 3.
All opposed to the amendment, let it be known by a show of hands and to count it.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Okay, amendment fails. Chair recognizes Representative Dabney.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. Amend this bill and as and if amended on page 1, lines 31 and 32 as follows. This act must be known and may be cited as the South Carolina Recreational Marijuana Part 1 Act. What are your questions?
Okay, any comments as relate to the amendment? Any opposition? Okay, hearing none. All opposed? I'm sorry, all in favor of the amendment, let me know by show of hands, the count.
1, 2, 3.
All in favor? Look, let's start. Okay, what did we just do? Okay, okay, in favor. All opposed?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13.
Okay. Fails. Chair recognizes Mr. Dabney.
Thanks, sir.
Opposed first.
Okay, we're going to amend the bill and as if amended throughout the bill by striking the word cannabis wherever it appears and inserting the word marijuana. Thank you.
Okay, anyone in opposition to the amendment? Okay, here none, now we vote. All in favor?
1, 2, 3.
Okay.
Oh, 4.
All opposed?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13.
Okay, fails. Okay, Mr. Dabney?
Thank you. Amend the bill as and if amended by striking Section 2 and inserting South Carolina legislators have recognized that lobbying groups from places like New York City are too powerful to resist anymore, and it is time to give up and start the process of introducing recreational marijuana to South Carolina. Thank you.
Okay. Any comments? In opposition? Okay, here and now. All in favor?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay. All opposed?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
The amendment fails. Okay, Mr. Dabney?
Thank you. Amend the bill as and if amended in section 44-53-2080, parentheses, capital A, section 3, parentheses, E, parentheses, Roman numeral 3, page 14, by inserting an appropriately numbered item after line 4. The risk of drug interactions while using cannabis products with other legend drugs. Amend the bill further in section 44-553-2096, Bravo, by striking lines 33 through 35 on page 18 and inserting requirements for consultations between a pharmacist and a patient each time a cannabis product is dispensed. Every consultation must include information about the risk of drug interaction while using cannabis products with other legend drugs. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, all in favor? Okay, any comments as it relate to the amendment, opposition to the amendment? Okay, here none. All in favor? Let it be known by a show of hands.
1, 2, 3.
Okay, all opposed?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Okay, the amendment fails. Chair recognizes Representative Dabney.
Thank you, sir. Amend the bill as and if amended in section 4453-2080, page 14, by inserting an appropriately numbered item after line 4. A written warning that cannabis may affect the human body for up to 12 hours. Amend the bill further in section 4453-2096, Bravo, by striking lines 33 through 35 on page 18 and inserting requirements for consultations between a pharmacist and a patient each time a cannabis product is dispensed. Every consultation must include a written warning that cannabis may affect the human body for up to 12 hours. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, discussion as relates to opposition. Okay, hearing none. All in favor, let it know by show of hands.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, all opposed?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Okay, amendment fails. Chair recognizes Mr. Dabney.
Thank you. Amend the bill as and if amended in section 4453, 2080, alpha 3, page 14, by inserting an appropriately numbered item after line 4. A written warning that, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, cannabis may cause anxiety. Amend the bill further in section 4453, 2096, Bravo, by striking lines 33 through 35 on page 18 and inserting requirements for consultations between a pharmacist and a patient each time a cannabis product is dispensed. Every consultation must include a written warning that, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, cannabis may cause anxiety. Thank you.
Okay, any discussion as relate to the opposition to the amendment? Okay. Hearing none. All in favor, let it be known by show of hands of the county.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, opposite, all opposed?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Mr. Johnson? 8, 9, 10.
Okay, the amendment fails. Chair recognizes Representative Dabney.
Thank you. Amend the bill and as and if amended in section 4453, 2080, alpha 3, page 14, by inserting an appropriately numbered item after line 4. A written warning that, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, cannabis may cause disorientation. Amend the bill further in section 4453, 2096, Bravo, by striking lines 33 through 35 on page 18 and inserting requirements for consultations between a pharmacist and a patient each time a cannabis product is dispensed. Every consultation must include a written warning that, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, cannabis may cause disorientation. Thank you.
Yes, Chair recognizes Representative Hill.
Mr. Chairman, parliamentary inquiry, would are we operating under rules governing whether amendments can be dilatory or not?
Yes, sir, we are.
Well, then I would raise the point of order that this amendment, as well as the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 amendments that should be Dabney Amendment 9 through Dabney Amendment 18 are dilatory, since they are all substantially the same and pretty much are just changing one word at the end of each amendment.
Okay, just 1 second. Take a look at that. Okay, after research, I'm gonna have to sustain Mr. Hill's recommendation that amendments 9 through 18 are out of order. Okay, Mr. Dabney, could you move on from that point?
With number 19.
With 19, start at 19.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Amend the bill as and if amended, page 14, by striking lines 12 through 17 and inserting that the,
Ms. Davenport, hold one second. Can we get some order? Thank you.
thank
Go
you.
ahead, Ms. Davenport. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to insert that the physician has discussed the risks and benefits of the use of medical cannabis products with the patient or caregiver, including the variability and lack of standardization of cannabis preparations, their potential effects, and the admonition that qualifying patients must not drive or operate heavy machinery for a minimum of 12 hours after the use of cannabis products or at any time while under the influence of medical cannabis. And amend the bill further in sections 44, 50 through 2096, Bravo, by striking lines 33 through 35 on page 18 and inserting the requirements for consultations between a pharmacist and a patient. Each time a cannabis product is dispensed, every consultation must include a written warning that a patient must not drive or operate heavy machinery for a minimum of 12 hours after the use of cannabis products or at any time while under the influence of medical cannabis.
Okay, we've heard the report, the discussion on this amendment. Yes, sir, go ahead, Mr. McKay.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Despite maybe the intent on some of these amendments, I don't know why we wouldn't want to consider including as much language for a consumer of the drug to have. And I notice a bunch of these amendments going forward essentially provide information about contraindictions or to the drug or different things that someone may have. So I would encourage folks to look closely at these suggestions because they do seem to provide good information to a consumer of medical marijuana.
Okay, all right, any comments to the in opposition? All right, okay, pending question. All in favor?
1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, all opposed?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Dabney, Chair recognizes Mr. Dabney, continue.
Thank you, sir. Amend the bill as and if amended, page 45, by striking line 42 and inserting the disclosure of ingredients, including an indication of whether the cannabis is sativa, indica, or a hybrid, and possible allergens. I'd like to read that again because it's very important. The disclosure of ingredients, including an indication of whether the cannabis is sativa, indica, or a hybrid, and possible allergens. Amend the bill further on page 58 by striking lines 42 and 43 and inserting labels shall indicate whether the cannabis is sativa, indica, or hybrid, and may include cannabinoid or terpene profiles for identification. Thank you.
Okay, any discussion as relates to any opposition to the amendment? Okay, hearing none, all in favor, let it be known by a show of hands.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 in favor.
Okay, opposed?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
So the amendment passes. Okay. Yes, sir. Mr. Hart.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a point of order here under Rule Point 3, which is dilatory. I've spent a considerable amount of time going through all these amendments. Of course, we've spent several years going through the bill. My point of order is under Rule 8.3 to cause delay. I've had a chance to go through all the amendments, and you probably need to write these down. The amendments that I'm about to list, they have the substantial effect, but they just change either the name or one number in it. It starts with number 32, 33, 34, and 35. With that, as you can see, starting with 31, it changes the milligrams from 1,600 to 1,000. It goes to 750, 500, and 250. So that would be amendment number 32, 33, 34, and 35. I would ask the chair to rule out of order.
Mr. Dabney, would you like to speak to that?
Mr. Hart, what were the numbers of those 32 through 35?
That is correct.
Okay. Give me just a second, please.
Yes, Chair recognizes Ms. Robinson.
Mr. Hart, turn off your mic.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Robinson, please turn on your mic.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am just curious as to what happened to amendments 21 through 31.
We're not taking them up yet.
Aren't we taking them in order?
Yes, ma'am, we are.
Okay, you want me to?
Mr. Hart can answer it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm glad you asked that, Ms. Robinson, 'cause it may be confusing. So after going through all the amendments, I went through all the amendments and I found the ones that were dilatory, but I didn't necessarily go in the order. I found the ones that were dilatory. So we have not discussed the amendments that you just spoke of, but we will get to those orders. But what I'm asking the chair to do is the ones that I've determined or that I would like him to rule out of order to discuss them right now. And just for the point of order, that's it. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, though. Appreciate you.
Okay, Mr. Dabney?
Yes, sir, thank you. I'd like to agree with Mr. Hart, but each one of those changes the amount of THC by a substantial amount. Tell me what you're getting at one more time, that, if you don't mind, Mr. Hart.
Yes, all the amendments that you have under 31 through 35 have the substantial effect. It's just changing the dosage on it, and that's it. And that's one of the intended causes of delay under 8.3.
I would say that because it's changing the dosage, that they wouldn't be dilatory, but I can't argue with the rule if that's what the rule says, so.
Yes, that's what it says. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. The chair sustained Mr. Hart's recommendation.
And
32 through 35, 32, 33, 34, 35.
And I have some other ones that I've gone through, Mr. Chair.
Okay, chair recognizes Mr. Hart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Further in looking at the amendments, if we would take a look at 38, 39, and 40 under Rule 8.3, they all have the substantial effect where they just lower the dosage by 1,000.
Okay, chair recognizes Mr. Dabney.
Yes, sir. I still don't think it's dilatory. It's because it is changing the dosage, but again, I can't argue with the rule if that's what the rule says. I trust Mr. Hart.
Yes, sir, that's what it says.
Okay.
Okay, chair sustained Mr. Hart's motion.
That was 30, which ones were those?
It's 38, 39, and 40. Okay, sustain the point of order.
No, just 38.
Okay, all right.
I some more.
Mr. Hart.
Continue to look at those amendments, Mr. Chair. I point the chair's attention to 48, 49, 50, and 51. Those all have the substantial effect, and under Rule Point 3, ask you to rule them out of order. Right.
Mr.
Rule
Dabney,
8,
would you like
Rule
to speak?
8.3, I'll ask the chair to rule them out of order under Rule 8.3, and continuing with that, we have 52, 53, and 54.
Okay. Mr. Dabney, would you like to speak to the,
Again, I don't feel they are dilatory, but I'm not going to argue with the rule.
okay. All right, the chair sustains Mr. Hart's motion. Yes, ma'am.
52, 53, and 54.
48. 48 through 54. Yes. Ms. Hart?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Continuing in my research, I would ask the chair to rule out of order 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, and 70.
Okay, just give me a moment to take a look at that. Are you done? Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead, I'm sorry.
72, 73, 74, 75, and 76.
You included 71, Mr. Hart?
No, sir.
You're not? You're not?
No,
Okay.
sir.
All right. Mr. Dabney, anything like to add?
Yes, sir. What numbers were those again?
Okay, let the chair recognize Mr. Hart, please. Mr.
Yes, the numbers are 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70. Skip over 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, and 76.
Okay, Mrs. Dabney, would you have any comments at this time?
If Mr. Hart would read those numbers again, please.
Mr. Hart, would you read the numbers again?
Yes. 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 70.
Is that sufficient, Mr. Dabney? Okay. Okay, Mr. Hart, would you try it in English then?
61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 72, 73, 74, and 75.
Okay.
76.
Okay, Mr. Dabney, you. Mr. Dabney, you have any?
No, sir, I'm good. I'm good now.
Okay, thank you. The chair sustained the motion from Mr. Hart. Mr. Dabney, next. What do you?
Yes, we should be back on my amendment 20. Mr. Hart made me
Sorry,
laugh,
I'm
and
sorry.
now I'm
Excuse me,
coughing.
wait a minute, Mr. Dabney. Mr. Hart.
I can wait, or we can, however you want to do it,
Okay.
Mr. Chair. We can do them all now. I still have more. Yes. We can do them all now. I still have more.
Okay, all right, Mr. Hart. Let's just do them all now then.
Okay. 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90. 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, and 95.
I'm sorry, will you say those again, Mr. Hart?
Mr. Hart, did you say 83 through 95?
Yes, let me read them one more time. Yes. 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, and 95.
Okay. All right, after the review, the chair sustained Mr. Hart's recommendation.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Hart, anything else?
Yes, sir. 98, let me make sure, so everybody's clear. I'm skipping over 96 and 97. I'm asking the chair to rule out of order 98, 99, 100, 101, and 102.
Mr. Dabney, would you like to speak to that? Okay. All right, the chair sustained Mr. Hart's recommendation on the said amendments.
That was 98 through 102, correct?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Mr. Hart?
Skipping over 103 through 105 and starting, I'm asking the chair to rule out of order 106 and 107.
Mr. Dabney, would you like to speak to the recommendation?
I'm not, on those now, Mr. Hart, I'm not seeing what your problem is with that.
Mr. Hart?
Which numbers are you talking about?
All right, like on 106, the, dealing with yeah, it's, the time period is every 90 days, striking annually to make it in every 90 days, and on 107, striking annually and make it biannually. So that's two different, I mean, that's pretty significant there.
Right, and in response to that, Mr. Chair, I think Mr. Dabney has a excellent point as far as the ones that we just mentioned, 106 through, I think 107, it goes from 90 to biannually. I think he would have an excellent point if there were not 129 amendments. If it was just those amendments alone exclusively, I think we could deal with them. I think it would be a very valid point to do, but through my research, I'm looking at all of them, the ones that I've asked you to rule out of order, they have the substantial effect, including the ones that Mr. Dabney just mentioned. So the ones he talks about, it modifies 34 of the state certifications must be updated monthly, 90 days, then biannually. If those amendments were by themselves, I think we could take them up. But taken as a whole with 129, I think they are out of order under Rule Point 83.
Mr. Dabney, any
I'm good with Mr. Hart's opinion.
You agree with Mr. Hart and Mr. Devlin? Okay. All right, the chair sustained, Mr. Hart's recommendation.
Next, we're going to skip over 108, and I would respectfully ask the chair to rule out of order 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, 115, 116, skipping over 117, 118, 119, 120, skipping over 121 and 122. I would ask the chair to rule out of order 123, 124, 125, 126, 127, and 128.
Okay, Mr. Hart, would you, okay, let's get some order here. Let's get some order. The chair gonna recognize people as they ask to be recognized. Okay, so, the chair recognizes Ms. Broadley at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Hart, I think it would be helpful if you, when you identified them and you skipped, if you just give us a sequence from 109 to 120, and if we skip one, we stop there, and then the next sequence separately. That would help keep track,
Yes, ma'am.
as a suggestion.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, any other questions, comments from any other members, in order? Okay, okay, Mr. Gay, then Ms. Matthews.
Yeah, if Representative Daphne was kind enough just to pull all his amendments, is it possible he could reintroduce to the floor if it gets to the House? That's a point of inquiry.
Chair recognizes Mr. Dabney.
Yes, sir, thank you. There's going to be quite a few amendments introduced to the floor on this, Mr. Gilliard. So I get your point, but I want to stick with these today.
Okay, any other discussions? All right, Ms. Matthews. Ms. Matthews. Rep, you okay? Okay, thank you. Okay, all right, let the chair take a moment and make a rule on,
Mr. Chair, I'm still a little confused as to which numbers we're looking at. Could we restate that?
yes, sir, Mr. Hart, would you restate the numbers?
Yes, sir. Let's do this. And I'm just doing this out of abundance of caution. I made the point on 106 and 107, which was the 90 days and biannually. From there,
Mr. Hart, he's already sustained that one. Yeah. You're on 109 to 116 right now.
I made the point on 106 and 107 where we talked about the 90 days and the biannually. And then what I did, I skipped over 108, and then I asked the chair to rule out of order 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, 115, 116.
Okay, Mr. Dabney, you have anything else?
Mr. Hart, I thought you went further than that. Okay,
Yes.
all right, sorry.
And I'm not, how do y'all want me to explain it? Y'all asked me to go back. I'm trying to go back where I started. So that's why I intentionally went back to the 106 and 107. I did that intentionally. I knew it was ruled sustained. I know it was already sustained. But I did that remember I said out of abundance of caution. So now I went from 106, 107, we skipped over 108, and we are starting with 109. It just out of, everybody's clear on 109. We're starting at 109. So 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, 15, 16, and we're skipping over 117, 118, 119, and 120.
Okay, the chair now prepared the rule. Sustain the point of order. Mr. Dabney, you have anything else?
Okay, Mr. Hart, I want to make sure, are you including 118 through 120 in your, or did you say skip over those? 118 through 120, you're including in your,
That's correct.
in your
Yes.
protest?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
All right. You have any more minutes?
I do.
Oh, yeah, Ms. Hart?
Yes.
Okay, chair recognizes Mr. Hart.
Okay. Skipping over 121 and 122. And I'm asking the chair to rule out of order 123, 124, 125, 126, 127, and 128.
Okay, that's 23, 24, 26, and 28. 23 through 28. All right. Okay, Mr. Dabney, would you like to speak to the point of order? Yeah. Okay. All right. Any comments as relate to being opposed? Okay, hearing none, the chair now sustain the point of order.
That's all I have.
Okay. All right, now we gotta figure out, we're back on what? We're back on what? 21?
21?
All right. Okay. Chair recognizes Mr. Dabney, you ready? Go.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, so we're on Dabney Amendment 21. Amend the bill as and if amended, page 45, by striking line 42 and inserting the disclosure of ingredients, including an indication of whether the cannabis is type 1, type 2, or type 3, and possible allergens. Amend the bill further on page 58 by striking lines 42 and 43 by inserting labels shall indicate whether the cannabis is type 1, type 2, or type 3, and may include cannabinoid or terpene profiles for identification. Thank you.
Okay. Any discussion as relate to the amendment? Mr. Carter, you speaking for or against, Mr. Carter?
It's a matter of question.
Okay, all right,
Yep.
ready.
Ms. Dabney, I don't understand what type 1, type 2, type 3. Can you explain?
That would go back to sativa, activa, or a hybrid. I believe they're also referred to type 1, type 2, and type 3. The different types of cannabis, sativa being the most potent with the highest levels of THC, and the activa is the least potent.
Mr. Carter. Okay, Mr. Carter, okay, now we in cloture, we can keep in mind, we're gonna only take discussions that's either for or against the amendment. Okay, all right, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Being that we've already passed the amendment to talk about these, is this one really even necessary? We've already passed the amendment to have the indica, all that on the label. So is this one necessary?
Okay, you concluded? All right, we prepared now to vote on the amendment. All in favor, let it be known by show of hands and to count it.
1, 2,
All opposed?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Okay, the amendment fails. Okay. Mr. Dabney, Chair recognizes Mr. Dabney.
Thank you, sir. And just to go back to Mr. Johnson for a second, I got your point. You're correct. Yep. All right, so this amendment here, Dabney Amendment 22, would amend the bill as and if amended, page 45, by striking line 42 and inserting the disclosure of ingredients, including the amount of tetrahydrocannabinol, or THC, per dose. So let me go back to, I'm just going to use THC with that. The disclosure of ingredients, including the amount of THC per dose and possible allergens. Amend the bill further on page 58 by striking lines 42 and 43 by inserting labels shall not include strain names, but indicate the amount of THC per dose and may include cannabinoid or terpene profiles for identification. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, any comments on the bill as right to opposition? Okay, hearing none. All in favor, let it be known by show of hands.
1, 2, 3,
Opposed?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Okay, the amendment fails. Mr. Dabney? Chair recognizes Mr. Dabney.
Thank you, sir. This amendment, my amendment, I'm sorry, I was on the wrong one. I didn't take that off. Okay, this amendment, Amendment 23, would amend the bill as and if amended, page 45, by striking line 42 and inserting the disclosure of ingredients, including the amount and type of terpenes per dose and possible allergens. Amend the bill further on page 58 by striking lines 42 and 43 and inserting labels shall not include strain names, but may include cannabinoid and must include the amount and type of terpenes for identification. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, all in favor, let it be known by show of hands.
1, 2, 3,
All opposed?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13.
Okay. The amendment fails. Chair recognizes Mr. Dabney.
Thank you, sir. This amendment would amend the bill as and if amended, page 45, by striking line 42 and inserting the disclosure of ingredients, including the amount of cannabinol per dose and possible allergens. Thank you.
Okay. All in favor, let it be known by show of hands and accounted.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, all opposed?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Okay, okay, the amendment fails. Chair recognizes Mr. Dabney.
Thank you, sir. This is my amendment number 25. Amend the bill as and if amended, page 45, by striking line 42 and inserting the disclosure of ingredients, including the place of origin of the cannabis and possible allergens. Thank you.
Okay, all in favor of the amendment, let it be known by a show of hands at the county.
1, 2, 3,
All opposed?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8. Mr. Bustos, did you have your 9, 10, 11?
Okay, the amendment fails. Chair recognizes Mr. Dabney.
All right, thank you, sir. This amendment would amend the bill as and if amended, page 15, by adding after line 40, any physician who issues written certifications must be licensed and in good standing as a physician, be currently practicing medicine, register with the department to issue written certifications in a manner and on a format determined by the department, attest that he has an active, unrestricted medical license, unrestricted federal controlled substances registration, and unrestricted state controlled substances registration, if applicable, and complete a 3-hour continuing medical education course on medical cannabis on a yearly basis, including an online course that is approved by the South Carolina Board of Medical Examiners. Attest to the completion of the course electronically or otherwise specified by the department prior to writing any certifications, and attest that he has provided SLED, State Law Enforcement Division, with all local law enforcement agencies with the name and addresses of each cardholder for whom the physician has issued a written certification. Amend the bill further on page 29 by striking lines 1 through 33 and inserting information submitted on the Bureau of Drug Control and the secure web-based verification system is confidential and not subject to public disclosure under the Freedom of Information Act or any other provision of the law except as provided in F and G. The Bureau of Drug Control shall maintain procedures to ensure that the privacy and confidentiality of patients and patient information collected, recorded, transmitted, and maintained is not disclosed except as provided in sections F and G. And F and G are as follows. If there's reasonable cause to believe that a violation of law or breach of professional standards may have occurred, then the Bureau of Drug Control shall notify the appropriate law enforcement agency or professional licensure, certification, or regulatory agency or entity, and shall provide prescription information required for an investigation. The Bureau of Drug Control may provide data in the cannabis monitoring program to the following persons: a physician, pharmacist, or authorized delegate who requests information and certifies that the requested information for the purpose of providing medical or pharmaceutical treatment to a bona fide patient, a qualifying patient or designated caregiver who requests the individual's own cannabis monitoring information in accordance with the procedures established by law.
Okay.
Thank you.
We've heard the amendment. All in favor of it? Let it know by show of hands.
1, 2, 3.
All opposed?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Okay. All right, the amendment fails. Mr. Dabney?
Thank you, sir. We're on Dabney Amendment 27 now, which would amend the bill as and if amended on page 16 by striking lines 4 and 5 and inserting a physician may not be sued for medical malpractice as a result of certifying a qualifying patient's medical use of cannabis. However, a physician may be held liable for certifying the use of an amount of medical cannabis that results in a qualifying patient's addiction to cannabis. Thank you.
Okay. All right, all in favor of the amendment, let it be known by show of hands at the county.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay. Those opposed?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Okay. The amendment fails. Okay. Chair recognizes Mr. Dabney.
Yes, sir, thank you. I know we're kind of going through these in a hurry, and there's some really good amendments in here. Although we've taken quite a few out, and I understand why, but I hope everybody doesn't get irritated with me so much that they overlook a good amendment. So now I'll read this one. A physician may not be sued for medical malpractice as a result of certifying a qualifying patient's medical use of cannabis. However, a physician may be held liable for certifying the use of medical cannabis for a qualifying patient with a history of mental illness or with risk factors for mental illness, and the qualifying patient subsequently is diagnosed with mental illness. Thank you.
Okay, we've heard the amendment. All in favor of it?
1, 2,
All opposed?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Okay, the amendment fails. Mr. Dabney? Oh. Who's it? Oh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes,
I'd
ma'am.
just like to point out to Mr. Dabney that we did support an earlier amendment. We voted in favor of it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving along, Mr. Dabney. Chair recognizes Mr. Dabney.
All right, yes, ma'am, and I appreciate that. I took great notice of that, and that was much appreciated. Okay, this is my amendment number 28. Amend the bill as and if amended, excuse me, I just read that one. All right. Amend the bill and as and if amended, page 2, lines 39 through 43, and page 3, lines 1 through 43, and page 4, lines 1 through 3, as follows. Allowable, as used in this article, allowable amount of medical cannabis or allowable amount of cannabis products means for a 14-day period, cannabis products for topical administration, including but not limited to patches for transdermal administration, or lotions, creams, or ointments that contain a total of no more than 4,000 milligrams of Delta-9 THC, and Delta-9 is more potent than Delta-8 if when that comes up. Cannabis products for oral administration, including but not limited to oils, capsules, or edible forms that contain a total of no more than 1,600 milligrams of Delta-9 THC. Cannabis products that consist of oils for vaporization that contain a total of no more than 8,200 milligrams of Delta-9 THC, or for any other modes of delivery an equivalent amount as determined by the department. In any case in which a physician has specified a certain amount of cannabis products pursuant to section 4453 2080 Bravo, and an allowable amount of cannabis products is the amount of cannabis products specified for a 14-day period. In any case in which a physician has not specified a certain amount of cannabis products, an allowable amount of cannabis products is the amount of cannabis products specified for a 14-day period as provided in either sub-items, and it lists the sub-items as you can see. The allowable amount of medical cannabis does not include industrial hemp for human consumption. Bona fide physician-patient relationship has the same meaning as in section 4047-113 alpha. Cannabis means all parts of the plant, of the cannabis genus of plants, whether growing or not, the seeds of the plant, the resin extracted from any part of the plant, and every compound, manufacture, salt, derivative, mixture, or preparation of the plant, its seeds or resin. Cannabis does not mean
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dabney. Okay, we will now vote by in favor of? Those are in favor of.
1, 2, 3.
Okay, all opposed?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Okay, the amendment fails. Okay, Mr. Dabney, the next amendment?
Okay, thank you, sir. This is Dabney Amendment 30. This amendment would amend the bill as and if amended on page 2, lines 39 through 43, page 3, lines 1 through 43, and page 4, lines 1 through 3 as follows. Allowable amount of medical cannabis or allowable amount of cannabis products means for a 14-day period, cannabis products for topical administration, including but not limited to patches for transdermal or administration or lotions, creams, or ointments that contain a total of no more than 4,000 milligrams of Delta-9 THC. Cannabis products for oral administration, including but not limited to oils, tinctures, or capsules that contain no more than 1,600 milligrams of Delta-9 THC. Cannabis products that consist of oils for vaporization that contain a total of no more than 8,200 milligrams of Delta-9 THC, or for any other modes of delivery, an equivalent amount as determined by the department. In any case in which a physician has specified a certain amount of cannabis products, an allowable amount of cannabis products in the amount of cannabis products specified for a 14-day period. In any case in which a physician has not specified a certain amount of cannabis products, an allowable amount of cannabis products is the amount of cannabis products specified for a 14-day period as provided in either of these following sub-items. The allowable amount of medical cannabis does not include industrial hemp for human consumption. Bona fide physician-patient relationship has the same meaning as in the previous section. Cannabis means any part of the plant or of the cannabis genus of plants, whether growing or not. We've already covered that in the previous amendment. Let's go down to item 4. Cannabis products means a product that is infused or otherwise contains cannabis or an extract thereof, and that is intended for use, consumption, or absorption, or any method of ingestion by humans cultivated and produced by a licensed facility in South Carolina. The term includes, but is not limited to, a beverage, topical product, ointment, oil, patch, spray, suppository, or tincture. Amend the bill further on page 5 by striking lines 24 through 34. And then amend the bill further on page 46 by striking lines 1 through 3 and striking lines 17 through 20.
Yes, all in favor of the amendment?
1, Mr. Debbie, are you the 2?
All opposed?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Okay, the amendment fails. Okay. Mr. Dabney?
Yes, sir, thank you. This is my amendment number 31. Amend the bill as and if amended, page 3, by striking lines 3 through 6 and inserting cannabis products for oral administration, including but not limited to oils, tinctures, capsules, or edible forms that contain a total of no more than 1,000 milligrams of Delta-9 THC. Thank you.
Okay, you completed, Mr. Dabney? Okay, all opposed? I'm sorry, all in favor, thank you.
1, 2, 3,
All opposed?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Okay, the amendment fails. Okay, Chair recognizes Mr. Dabney.
Yes, sir, thank you. This is my amendment 36. Amend the bill as and if amended, page 3, by striking lines 7 through 9. And then amend the bill further on page 37 by striking lines 32 through 43. And on page 38 by striking lines 1 through 7. And then further amend the bill on page 45 by striking lines 16 through 20. Amend the bill further on page 47 by striking lines 9 through 36. Amend the bill further on page 63 by striking section 5 on lines 17 through 25. And then amend the bill further by adding a new line on page 7 after line 5. Medical use means the acquisition, administration, possession, preparation, transportation, or use of cannabis products or paraphernalia used to administer cannabis products to treat or alleviate a qualifying patient's debilitating medical condition or symptoms associated with qualifying patient's debilitating medical condition, and includes the transfer of cannabis products. Then you can read on down to where this is the last paragraph, the extraction of resin from cannabis by a solvent extraction other than water, glycerin, propylene, glycol, vegetable oil, or food-grade ethanol, unless the extraction is done by a processing facility or smoking or vaporizing. Thank you.
All in favor of the amendment, let it be known by show of hands.
1, 2,
All opposed?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Amendment fails. Mr. Dabney?
Thank you. This is number 37. Yeah, this is Abney 37. Amend the bill as and if amended, page 3, by striking lines 7 through 9 and inserting cannabis products that consist of oils for vaporization that contain a total of no more than 4,000 milligrams of Delta-9 THC. So you can see it went from 8,000 to 4,000. It's the big deal there. All right, thank you.
Okay, all in favor?
1, 2,
All opposed?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Okay, the amendment fails. Mr. Dabney?
Yes, sir, thank you. Now we're on 41. Amend the bill as and if amended, page 3, by striking lines 32 through 39. And you can see what that does there. Cannabis does not mean the mature stalks of the plant, fiber produced from the stalks, oil or cake made from the seeds of the plant, a product approved as a prescription medication by the United States Food and Drug Administration, or the sterilized seeds of the plant that are incapable of germination. Thank you.
Okay, all in favor?
1, 2,
All opposed?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
The amendment fails. Mr. Dabney?
All right. Thank you, sir. This amendment, as and if amended, page 3, by striking lines 25 through 39, which I just read some of that, what cannabis means, what it doesn't mean, but skip over that. The important part of this amendment is that cannabis means only a product approved as a prescription medicine by the United States Food and Drug Administration. And I really think that on this one point is why a lot of people are opposed to this, is that cannabis should mean only a product approved as a prescription medicine by the United States Food and Drug Administration, and it's not. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. McGarry?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I'd like to speak on that. It's very important to realize that the FDA has not approved medical marijuana, and it's also not going to be a prescription from a doctor, just so that everyone knows that. They cannot prescribe this drug. It would be a certification that the doctor's right. That's very important for everyone to remember. A certification, not a prescription. That means they cannot give an accurate dose for a patient because we don't have one. Every patient is going to be different. They'll have to titrate to different doses on this medical marijuana, and therefore we don't know what anyone's dose will be. We don't know what a dose will be for someone driving a car. Now, I know everyone's saying that it's medical marijuana. They won't be out on the road. That's not true. That is not true. We do know that. We've seen that with other people across other states. Medical marijuana, you can take it, use it, and be behind the wheel of a vehicle. We don't have any way to know what do I want to say, a dose that they would be inebriated like a drunk driver. We can't prove that. So again, the FDA has not approved medical marijuana. The American Medical Association has not approved the use of medical marijuana. The AAMA has not approved the use of medical marijuana. We did not hear from doctors about the use of medical marijuana. We did hear from pharmacists, and I'm grateful for that. But I just wanted to let y'all know that that's what we know. It is not approved by the FDA. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Chair, recognize Mr. Tedder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Ms. McGarry, I appreciate your comments in support of the FDA. It's not that we don't believe in the FDA. I just want to make a point that I find it interesting that we now all of a sudden, if the FDA doesn't approve something, then it's not proper, it's not safe. But when the FDA, I just want to point out for the record that when the FDA approved the COVID vaccines, many of you were saying that the FDA was wrong and the COVID vaccine was a hoax. So I just find it interesting that we choose when we want to believe certain things for what it's worth.
Okay, all those in favor?
1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, all opposed?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Okay. The amendment fails. The chair will now ask the committee to take a 5-minute break, 5-minute recess, and come back sharply 5 minutes. call the House Stream Committee meeting back to order to reconvene. Okay, the Chair recognizes Mr. Dabney.
Yes, yes, sir, thank you. I believe at this point, I feel good with what we've done so far, and I thought we passed a really good amendment during this process, but I believe it's time at this point to just go ahead and pull the rest of these amendments, sir.
Okay. Okay, Chair, Mr. Dabney wishes to withdraw his amendments at this time. And now we are now to at the point of basically debate of the bill. The opponents get 1 hour, the proponents get an hour. You don't have to take up to an hour, but each person has got, I think it's 10 minutes per person for or against. Okay, so we'll get started with the opponents of the bill. Opponents, we got opponents. Let's go to opponents, okay. Anyone in opposition to the bill? Can be heard now? Ms. McGarry?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you all for being here, and thank you, Mr. Dabney, for pulling the rest of that pile. Huh. You've done well, you really have. I appreciate everything that you've done for us. I just want to say, many of you have heard that I am against this. I'm sure you've heard that. I'm not against what many stand for, and I understand the need for, or what people want this for, as far as medical is concerned, in the need of end-of-life care possibly. But I also want to say that I agree with the American Medical Association and the AAMA that there needs to be more testing and more guidance on this before it can be actually a prescription drug, in my opinion. So with that being said, I also want you to know that I come from a law enforcement family, and my husband and my son have made arrests on marijuana, and I know that that's recreational. I'm not saying that it's not, but it is a drug, and it is a street drug at this point in time. I also know from personal experience with my brother that it's a gateway drug. He's in prison for dealing every drug known to man, but he started out with marijuana. He's been in prison most of his adult life. It's not an easy road for my family to understand that, and for the families that he's affected throughout his life. How many, I have no idea. So this is a personal thing for me, but it's also a law enforcement issue for me. We've seen a lot of things happen over the years, but I also understand these people that have children with epilepsy, and I've seen it actually help those people. I understand both sides of this. But again, I come from the medical field. I know what the AMA says. I know what the AAMA says. I'm in the political field now. To me, this is political. It's not, it's more of a emotional, political fight, and it doesn't feel right. It just doesn't feel right, and I feel bad that this is where we're at. So with that being said, and we can't, I don't know, I feel bad. So I just want you all to know and to thank you all for listening to my side and understanding my side, and thank you all, and let's see what we got. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Gary. Anyone else? Mr. McKay?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've got constituents on both sides of this issue, and I'd like to explain my vote on this today. I'm opposed to this particular bill. I'm not opposed to medical marijuana in each and every case. I think that there are cases where medical marijuana is probably appropriate. For instance, someone facing terminal cancer or severe epilepsy, at that point, why do we really even care if they find relief in medical marijuana? Then I don't have a problem with that, and I think the law should probably permit that. But I do have some concerns with this bill. And one is, I know I tend to be a little quirky about the free market stuff if you watch my votes, but I think this bill does something that is not good, and one is limits the 15 cultivation center licenses. In my year and a half serving in the House, I realized that many times the bills that are presented to the House have nothing to do with the benefit of the citizens or the consumers. Many of these bills that are presented to protect the market or the business interest of the people who are here asking us for help, whether it be professionals, whether it be businesses. Many of the bills are under a guise of for the benefit of the consumer, when they're really for the benefit of the people who's making money. And let's be clear, limiting this to 15 growers is gonna make 15 growers incredibly rich. If we're gonna do this bill, then it needs to be a true free market bill, and there needs to be more than 15 cultivation center licenses. There's 30 processing facilities permitted under this bill, and you know, some people are going to get very wealthy on this bill as is currently drafted. So I have a real objection to the limitation on the growers, because I think the 15 and 30 probably have a pretty good idea who they are. The other thing is really a problem that has nothing to do with medical marijuana or even opioids. A lot of the proponents of this bill have proffered that marijuana is a solution to the opioid problem. And the opioid problem is not going away by passing this bill. And I think if we tell ourselves that it is, that we're really kidding ourselves. And I don't want to be judgmental in what I'm about to say, because I'm as guilty, and many of us are, but the real problem is that Americans want a chemical to solve every single problem they have. If our kid's not making good grades in school, we want to give them a chemical. Again, I'm not judging. There may be cases where these things are appropriate, but we want to give them a chemical. We want to give them a drug. When a kid is not behaving well, we want to give them a chemical, or we want to give them a drug. When people can't cope with their coworkers, what do they want to do? They want a magic pill that's going to change everything. And understand, I'm not judging. I'm as guilty of a lot of these things as anyone else, but medical marijuana isn't going to change people's lives. Now, if someone has a health problem, again, you're terminal, you're in pain, I'm fine with you having medical marijuana. But what we're going to see is an explosion of people using medical marijuana for as a psychotropic drug, and it's not a psychotropic drug, okay? So I have some concerns about this bill. For that reason, the grounds for using it are pretty broad, and people are going to be using this for social anxiety disorder and everything else. And I don't think using marijuana, using an opioid, using alcohol is an appropriate solution for most psychiatric disorders. So I think we need to be concerned about that. And let me give you a few statistics that I think that bear this out. In 2008, 10% of adults were using psychotropic drugs. In 2016, that number's increased to almost 16%. Here's the alarming statistic on this, because college students, 17% of college students are taking psychotropic drugs today. as of 2021, 17%. We've got a bigger problem, bigger than marijuana. And my concern with this bill is that it encourages people to use marijuana to deal with their problems. And so while I support using medical, well, I don't have a problem with people using medical marijuana in certain situations dealing with pain management, severe epileptic seizures, and things of that nature. I think going down the road that we allow people to vape marijuana to deal with their mental health issues might be a road that needs a little more consideration, and that we should narrow this bill for that reason. So for those reasons primarily, I intend to vote against this bill. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any other opponents? Mr. Dabney, opponents? Mr. Dabney, yes, sir. Your chair recognizes Mr. Dabney.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, you know, I agree with everything that Mr. McCabe just said. Under certain severe circumstances where somebody's terminally ill, there's no doubt that they're in the end stage of their life, they're on hospice care or just something along those lines. I believe in giving them anything that makes them feel better. And it could be this, whatever it is. They're dying and they're in pain, and I think we should try to help them as best we can. My concern with this bill is, just like Mr. McCabe just said, it's too broad-based, and it also and I just lost my train of thought. So anyway, I know Miss Brawley didn't you're not amazed by that, are you? So here's my big concern with this, and I know, like Mr. Hart said, that this is the most conservative bill of its type in the nation, and I believe that. And I believe he also, Mr. Hart said this today, and I heard Mr. Hill say it the other day. This has been worked on for 8 years, and I know the Senate's worked hard on this, but my concern is across the nation, wherever these bills have passed, a lot of problems develop. I've got a friend that lives in Washington State, and he called me a few weeks ago. We were just chit-chatting. I haven't talked to him in a long time. And I said, hey, you guys have medical marijuana out there in Washington. How did that work out for you? And he said, it's terrible. His exact quote was, it's ruined our state. Unemployment's gone up. Homelessness has gone up. Crime. He said, people just laying around, on the streets and sidewalks, he said, just stoned all the time. And I know that it probably didn't start out that way because, good intentions, but just like this bill has good intentions, but I'm afraid that the history of these types of bills across the country has not been good. Even though our bill might be the best, we're dealing with something that it's an industry is what we're dealing with, and whenever money's involved and people are going to be making lots of money, bad things are going to happen. So also I've heard, some of the things I've heard this week is, marijuana is harmless. It's not harmless. It leads to lots of problems, just like drinking, alcohol does. It leads to lots of problems, and lives are ruined in a lot of cases, or people are killed in lots of cases, even with marijuana, driving under the influence, or just having an accident that you would not have ordinarily had if you weren't on this marijuana. It's not a harmless drug. People said, well, it's a plant. It grows naturally. It's organic. And they would say that. I heard that mentioned many times this week, as if it was totally harmless. Well, poison ivy is an organic plant, and I'm not going to chew it or smoke it or rub it all over me, because mushrooms are organic and natural. There are mushrooms that grow along the woods where I like to go hiking that I won't even touch. If you touch them, some of them are so poisonous, you can lose your mind right there on the spot. And it's a beautiful little plant or fungus. Just like, but so marijuana is not an innocent plant that's just growing wild out there that's not going to hurt anybody. It can hurt, and it can destroy lives. And for all the reasons that were previously stated, of course, I'm also going to vote against this. Thank you.
Okay, we have any more, opponents to speak on the bill? Okay, hearing none now, we'll go to the proponents. We have up to 1 hour, each person's 10 minutes, and no one shall speak more than twice. More than once, okay. All right, more than once, okay. Hearing, Mr. Gilliard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Of course, being on the pro side of this, I want everybody to understand, and I respectfully disagree with some statements from some of the representatives here, because I could use the analogy in speaking to, why this is bad. I can tell you why some things are good. When you look at a rattlesnake, if it bites you, sure. If you don't get treatment, you'll die. But guess, and thank God for modern day technology, we can now use the venom from rattlesnake and cure diseases and many other things. So, it's always two sides to an issue. Now, speaking to the recreational marijuana, because I know we get this confused, and we have many times in discussing this, it reminds me of the days of Prohibition, when the government decided to do something bold. They legalized alcohol. In other words, they took the monies out of the hands of the underworld and decided to tax it and make good use of that money and put a lot of moonshiners out of business. It's an old saying that goes like this: not everything that is challenged can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is challenged. I always tell people, when you look at the state of South Carolina, we're always last in the things that are first, and first in the things that are last. Now, 37 some odd states cannot be wrong. But, in closing, because I don't want to take, we've been here long enough with this, if it's going to help children, I say do it. If it's going to help curing pains of some of your own fellow veterans. We've heard the pleas Monday gone. There was more veterans in this room than anything, and I was sort of taken by that. If it's going to help them, I say do it. We're very patriotic here in the state of South Carolina, and we need to practice what we preach. In being from Charleston County, it's a young lady, and I'd be remiss not to mention her names because she was a true champion in all this. Jill Swing, I want to commend her on her fortitude, her patience, going throughout the state telling the story about her daughter. I want to commend her. She deserves some accolades from all of this. And I'll be the first to tell anybody that. She can write a book about her experience on bringing this to the forefront. But I also want to thank the staff for their patience and my leader, Mr. Leon Howard. And you couldn't find a better lawyer, Mr. Hart, who's one of my favorites up here. I love the way you articulate it through all this, because you talk to the lay person, and that's what I like about you. You don't talk over people's heads. So I want to commend you on that, okay? And that's me, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Okay, anyone else? Ms. Brawley? Ms. Brawley, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I will be brief. I want to thank you, Mr. Dabney, for your amendments, but I want to thank you even more for pulling down the remaining ones that you did. As Ms. Robinson so ably pointed out, we did approve one of your amendments, and I think it was an important one for us to approve to alert folks who might be allergic to some of the things that might be in the cannabis. This is a tough issue for all of us. Some of us started on one side of the fence and we ended up on the other. But ultimately, for me, it was about helping people. And anytime as a legislative body we can do something to help people, we ought to give that every consideration. And I can tell you about a year or so ago when we were looking at Narcan, and this committee was deciding how it was going to be allowed to be permitted to be used by people who were not professionals. I had a lot of trepidation about that because I could see more people maybe taking opioids and taking other kinds of drugs reliant upon someone being there with Narcan to bring them back. But we approved it anyway because we were in the business of trying to save lives. And I think this particular bill is not only going to help a lot of people, we heard from them this week, but it's about more than that. It's about helping young children who can't speak for themselves, but for their parents who have watched them suffer year after year, looking for a remedy that we can provide. I think we should do this. And contrary to what many people may believe, this is not haphazardly done. The ability to get medical cannabis is specifically prescribed to certain types of illnesses. And you can't just say, I need it, and get it. And I think that's really responsible for us to have those distinctions so that we don't have people who are using this bill to create recreational use of marijuana. So I know this was tough for a lot of us, but again, we have the ability to help people. And we have to be reliant upon them to follow the law as we have, if we pass this bill as we have indicated it should be. And if we find that people are abusing the law, we have the ability to correct that. But I think to not hear the pleas of the people that we've heard here this week and last week and not have any sympathy for them would be heartless and irresponsible. So I would hope that all of us here today could feel comfortable in our own well-being to know that this is the right thing to do and to approve this bill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Brawley. Mr. Tedder, and then Representative Kimberly Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to point out for the record that I am for this bill for a number of reasons. As we've stated, I think we have to, while we heard some stories of how people believe that marijuana is a gateway drug and marijuana causes people to do illegal things, we must be reminded that majority, if not all of those stories, were dealing with recreational marijuana. And the difference is what we're doing here is making a product that's safe, that's determined by the medical professionals that we already trust to prescribe us opioids and pain relievers. And so I'd much rather have people having access to safe use of medical marijuana than having them go out and try to go to another state or illegally obtain marijuana, recreational marijuana, or street marijuana, as some may call it, from the underground industry. And the reason that is because if you haven't been paying attention a lot recently, people are lacing things. They're lacing marijuana with fentanyl. People are dying because they want access to marijuana. But when we have an opportunity to provide them with something that is safe and we know it's not laced and we know what's in it exactly because we trust our medical professionals, I think that's a good step. And no, I do agree with you, Mr. McCabe, that by passing this, it's not going to solve the opioid epidemic. People will still abuse opioids. People will still be prescribed opioids. However, in hearing some of the testimony from people and how medical marijuana can help wean people off of opioids, and if we can save just a couple of people, I think that this is a bill worth passing. Because one thing is an absolute, is that by not passing this bill, we certainly won't solve the opioid epidemic. And again, this is the most restrictive, conservative bill in the country. And I think that's for a reason, because we do want it to be safe. We want it to be regulated as it should be. But to those points, that's the reason I support this. And I think that it will save some lives and help people to wean off of opioids and let us not go on and particularly with things like Adderall, it's so easily accessible. You can just say you have, you can't pay attention, and almost everybody's prescribed Adderall, and I think that's a gateway drug to cocaine. But nonetheless, this will be regulated, and this will be a safe product because we will trust our medical professionals to do so. And that being said, I support this bill, and I hope that my colleagues can support this to help those that need it. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Representative Kimberly Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say it has been a privilege to serve on this committee under your leadership, Chairman Howard.
Thank you.
I appreciate the hard work of the staff. Mr. Dabney, I appreciate your efforts. I just want to say that this has been probably the most difficult vote I've taken this term. As a freshman legislator, I often laugh because I hear people say this bill has been being worked on for about 8 years. It probably could have passed sooner if my dad, who's a senator, hadn't had such a problem with it, but he voted against this bill, and I believe, we've talked about it, I believe this is the first piece of legislation that we have not been on the same page. I understand his side of it, and he understands mine. And what's important to me is that as a veteran, oftentimes when I don't even have an appointment at the VA, but when I'm traveling here, because I go home every day, when I'm traveling here or when I'm going back to Manning, I like to stop in at the VA. And sometimes I sit in the waiting rooms, and the things that I hear the veterans discuss that they're here to be treated for. I've seen missing limbs and veterans be service-connected at 10%, but they have a bag, a plastic grocery bag, of about 8 to 10 prescription medications. And I hear people pass that are visiting, and they say, "Thank you for your service." And my colleague and mentor, Mr. Hart, worded it perfectly this week when he said, "We're always telling veterans, thank you for your service." But I believe that talk needs to be matched by the walk. And I sit here and I say it's difficult because I hear the other side of it, but I just can't think that there's a child having numerous seizures. I can't think that there's a cancer patient near the end of life. I can't think that there's a veteran with some of these prescriptions that I've seen with my own eyes that they have been given. I cannot sit here and think that there's something like medicinal marijuana that can help them, and it's within my means to at least offer them the opportunity, and I not take it. And so this wasn't political for me because people told me, think about what this could mean for you as a freshman legislator as it relates to reelection. And I have opposition, but this vote, I did not consider the political side of it. I was elected to serve the constituents the best I could in this term. I was not elected to do anything to bring me back another term or to send me home or what have you. And I'd also like to conclude by thanking Jared from the Sheriff's Association, because I heard from you when I didn't hear from a lot of sheriffs. And when I heard from some, they were just saying, hey, either way, I could go either way on this. And so thank you for the phone calls. Thank you for the statistics and the facts that you shared with me. I really appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Johnson. The chair recognizes Representative Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In conjunction with everyone else, I also want to thank this committee. I think we've done a very good job of vetting this bill. We've acted with decorum and respect, and we've taken the time that is necessary to hear testimony from many. And I echo the sentiments of Representative Kim Johnson with the veteran, in regards to veterans issues. I think for me, that is the place where I most hear the talk about this. And while it is not the end-all, be-all, it is a great opportunity for us to add another tool to our tool belt when it comes to dealing with managing pain and mental health issues. And like so many have said before me, I support this bill because it is a choice, it is an option, just like we have folks that want to choose other things for COVID-19. This gives them another tool that they can use. And so I am definitely in support of this bill. I think it is past time, and I think this body and the state is ready for it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative Matthews. The chair now recognizes Representative Jermaine Johnson.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Well, first off, I do want to start off by thanking everybody here as well. Thanking you, Mr. Chair, for leading this effort here, and us. I think we did a great job vetting, listening to all the testimony, listening to what people had to say, and hearing concerns. I've spoken to a lot of individuals about this. And even though I was questioning a lot of people when they were coming up here during the testimony time, I did hear what people had to say, and one of the things that I must say is, listen to Mr. McCabe speak. I mean, he makes 100% sense on that, what he was talking about, and with having 15, how many of those 15 are going to be people of color or minorities? Or women owned. How many of these 15 are going to have access to, these rural communities or these people who are going to do this is going to be potentially, these are going to make millionaires or billionaires, here in this state. And how many of them are going to be individuals who just don't have, the resources or whatever or what have you. So, I do have concerns also, along with Mr. McCabe. I think that, we're always trying to put a pill in somebody. We're always trying to do something like that. We're always trying to take away the pain or figure out how to deal with it, have some coping skills. But we do have an opportunity to provide people with some sort of relief. And I feel so much better because I have experience. I know individuals from my community, people I grew up with, who smoked laced marijuana to try to cope with an issue. And they were never right after that. And I've seen people die from these situations of overdosing. 2 months ago, I lost a high school friend who overdosed on some opiates 2 months ago. And it hurt me. It hurt me because she was recovering. And after she recovered, well, their wall was in recovery. But after she was in her recovery, she got into a traumatic experience like a car accident. And that brought her back to taking another drug, and she overdosed. And her husband found her dead the next morning. Situations like that could be prevented. Could be prevented if we allow doctors, just the permission to offer somebody something that won't be so lethal to people that are out here. People are dying every single day because of drugs, prescription drugs that are aimed at helping people. And I think that right now that this is an opportunity for us all to really look at what we have to offer our constituents. Now, you can agree with it, you can disagree with it, but don't deny somebody else the opportunity at a quality of life because you disagree with it. So I think we must really consider, what we're doing here, and let's give people an opportunity at a good quality of life like we all want. Thank you so much.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, yes, ma'am. Ms. Robinson, yes, ma'am.
This past January, I sat for practically 2 weeks in the hospice center of the VA Center in San Francisco, California, as my own dear son lay dying from cancer. I watched him every day, and it was hard. It's still hard for me to talk about it. But it was hard for me to watch his body racked with pain each and every day. He suffered from an aggressive brain cancer, the same cancer that took out Joe Biden's son, Bo. You all may remember that. And as I watched him, he was cared for. He received beautiful care from the VA, knowing that he was going to die. And he had worked for the VA. In fact, the VA did a nationwide testimonial, a virtual testimonial on him, on his work as an advocate for veterans in the VA area of San Francisco, Oakland, California, and it was filmed all over the country for everyone to see. But I'm just thankful to God that I was out in California where he did receive the kind of help that he needed because of his ability to access the kind of medications that would ease his passage. I've sat on this 3M committee for the past 10 years. I'm retiring this year. But I often think about the people who came before us testifying, pleading for help. Some of them dragged their children in here, and we weren't able to do anything at that time. Now's the time. It may not have been the time before, but now is the time. Now's the time for us to make a positive vote that will impact the lives of little children suffering from epilepsy, from veterans like my son who are not out in California to get care, but are right here in South Carolina. Now's the time for us to move forward. So I will definitely be voting for this bill. There may be some things in it that need tweaking and whatever. We'll deal with that later. No bill that I've seen come out of this medical-related committee has ever been perfect, but it's a start. So I will be voting for it, and I want to thank everyone who participated in this process and helping us to better understand what we were up against. Mr. Dabney, I want to thank you. I want to thank everyone who participated. But I will definitely be voting for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, Ms. Murray?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and the staff. Thank you, Mr. Dabney. And at first, I was undecided about the bill, but since it's going to help with the veterans and children, I support this bill. And I just want to echo what Jermaine said. Hopefully, we can have more minorities in the industry. And it's been a long time, so I just want to say that. Thank you, and I'm glad that I'm part of the 3M committee. Thank you, Mr. Hart and Wendy, for what y'all doing too, also. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hill and Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief. I hadn't planned on saying anything. I'm going to save most of my comments for the House floor, but I do think that it's important for the public who may be watching today to know that this is not a partisan issue. This has bipartisan support and also has bipartisan opposition. This is an issue where, we're going to go out on the House floor and we're going to debate it. And as we've had this discussion here today and last week, the thing that I keep hearing come up from folks concerned about this bill is I'm afraid. I keep hearing I'm afraid. I'm afraid. I'm scared. I'm afraid. I'm afraid of South Carolina looking like something I don't want it to look like. I'm afraid of problems. I'm afraid of consequences. I'm afraid of these things. And I would just challenge you to just open your eyes, open your ears, and listen to the patients in your districts. And just imagine for a moment how much more afraid they must be when it is literally a choice of life or death for them. And ask yourself, why are you here if it's not to do right by them? Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for seeing us through this. This has been a long time coming.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Chair recognizes Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members of the committee, my colleagues today. This has, and I've got to say, I agree with people on both sides. Ultimately, I mean, we have a heart for getting people access to care, for opening up the market, and I took Mr. McCabe, some of his comments there. I mean, great points about the limitations on the growers, and I think there's going to be a maximum of 5 labs for testing these products, that kind of stuff. But we've heard a lot of testimony recently, but this is, as it's been said, it's been going on for 8 years. That this has been vetted. There's been deliberation on this for a very long time. When I first ran for this position, I'll never forget a lot of the veterans, when I went to their door, they would ask me about the Compassionate Care Act. That was one of their most important things. Would I support the Compassionate Care Act? watching, and I think personally, we've all seen these situations too, kids with epilepsy. We've seen people with MS, these kind of things. People leaving South Carolina trying to, in the past, trying to find medical treatment. And for me at least, my eyes were open to this, a lot, especially recently during the COVID pandemic, when people were looking for care. And you had government officials saying, do this, trying to restrict people from doing certain things. And you had doctors out there that were having success with a lot of treatments. It's not up to the government to dictate your health care. This is getting government out of health care. And I'll say this too, with every medicine, with every drug, there are risks. There are definitely risks. But there's also benefits. And I think the limitations, the guardrails that have been put in place in this bill, we have the most restrictive bill in the country. We've got basically 12 qualifying conditions. A lot of states have 22 plus. This is very, very limiting. This is a responsible way to do this. One of the quotes that's been going through my mind throughout this situation is Thomas Jefferson once said that he would rather be exposed to the inconveniences of attaining too much liberty than those attaining too small a degree of it. And that's what I'm thinking about right now. I hope we're going to open this up to people in this state so that they can have more medical freedom. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anyone else other than Mr. Hart? Okay. Chair now recognize Mr. Hart as a proponent. Thank you. Go right ahead, Mr. Hart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As the subcommittee chair who's been over this legislation for the past 8 years, I do want to thank the members of the committee and the staff for their hard work that we've gone through over the past 8 years. It's been very trying, it's been very emotional, it's been very tough. We have ups, we've had downs. And I've been here since 2006, and I chose, it was my prerogative to stay on this committee since 2006. I've had a chance to go to other committees. I've had a chance to be on Ways and Means if I had chose to. But I chose to stay here on this committee because of legislation like this and the way that we affect lives of thousands of people in South Carolina. This is one of the most restrictive bills of all the states in the country. Right now, we're only one of 4 states in the country without any form of marijuana legislation, particularly medical marijuana. I say that because South Carolina has a long history of always being last to choose to do something progressive. And I also say that because we have a sordid history of choosing not to get in front of things progressive. Over the past years, we've heard from the family members and some of our newer members who wasn't here. You've seen some of those children come in here. Little kids with the bravery and the hearts of a lion to stand on that podium and look us in the eye and say, look, I need help. I need something to stop these seizures. One of the young men that came in early this week, Monday, he had a hood on over his head. He sat back the whole entire time. When he first started coming, he needed assistance from his mother to get to that podium. What you saw on Monday was he walked to that podium by himself. When he first came, he couldn't read any of his testimony alone. He needed the assistance of his mother. But on Monday, he did it by himself. Representative Gilliard's constituent, that lady relentlessly has come up here every single year for her daughter. Every year. Every year she's come up here. And I don't believe in my heart that she has come up here so her daughter can overdose on marijuana, have it be a gateway drug to another drug, which leads me to my next point. I don't understand the gateway analysis. And here's what I don't understand about the gateway analysis. It's a gateway to what? What drug? Because all the other drugs are currently out there now. People are doing those drugs now, and we don't have this legislation. So I'm confused by the gateway analysis because I'm thinking, what is it gonna be a gateway to? And if we don't have this legislation, what is the gateway now? What's leading them to those drugs? One of the worst forms of substance that we can have right now is nicotine. You don't have commercials on TV anymore for cigarettes. Pharmacies have taken cigarettes out of the store. Walmart is suited to take cigarettes out of their stores. Cigarettes is one of the worst substances that you can ingest into your body. Lastly, I have to stand up for our veterans. And I say that because I'm a veteran myself. I currently have an impairment rating for PTSD. I don't plan to, if this passes, I don't plan to partake in the medical marijuana. I don't feel that I need it. I don't feel that I'm at that point, but there are some that need it. The young man who sat here for over 5-6 hours, he sat on the front row on Monday. He sat there patiently. And he got here in the very beginning. He didn't get a chance to speak until the end, but he came up and he spoke. That tells me he's committed to getting better, to feeling better. He didn't want to get high. He didn't want to just smoke marijuana. He wouldn't not have sat there for hours just to say, please pass this legislation. So with that, I remember one piece of testimony that really stuck out to me. And here's what I say about the PTSD. A couple years ago, there was a gentleman, I think it was a doctor from the upper state. Okay. And he came and he said, I went to Colorado and I saw a bunch of young men standing in line. They looked like they were from 18 to 24 years old, and they didn't look sick. And I had no intentions of asking him any questions, and one of the questions I asked him was, how does a sick person look? How does a person with PTSD look? You can't tell if a person has PTSD. You can't tell what's going on with somebody's body. So with that, Mr. Chair, I would call for the vote to move this legislation S150 to the full House floor favorable.
Okay, the subcommittee chair has called to move the legislation forward. We will now call the roll. Those in favor of this legislation, we will do a roll call.
Ms.
All in
Brawley?
favor?
Mr. Bustos?
Aye.
Mr. Carter?
Aye.
Mr. Dabney? Mr. Gilliard? Mr. Hart?
Aye.
Mr. Hill? Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson? Ms. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Jones? Ms. Matthews? Mr. McCabe? Ms. McGarry? Ms. Murray? Ms. Parks? Ms. Robinson? Mr. Tedder?
Aye.
The bill passes favorably, as amended.
Okay, just want to take a moment to thank the committee for years of hard work. Those individuals who are no longer here, who worked on this legislation, I want to thank them as well. I want to thank the staff who's done a great job for a long time, spent long hours in working on this legislation, hours that we don't see. Also want to thank the entire committee. Those who voted against the bill, I thank you because you are voting, in your opinion, what it's going to take to move South Carolina forward. Those who voted for the bill, I thank you for your vote because you voted in your opinion. It's what you think is gonna move South Carolina forward and do the best for people. I think we all want what is best for South Carolinians, and so we may be on different pages, but at the end of the day, it's in a good effort to do what is best for the citizens of the state of South Carolina and our constituents. I just want to say thank you for being here so long on Monday and your commitment for staying here today. I want to thank all the members of the press for having interest in this legislation so that we can get information out to our constituents. And we look forward to debating this legislation on the House floor. And I won't keep you any longer. I know you're all trying to get out of here and do other things that's important to you. Ms. Johnson indicated to me that she's ready to go. Okay, this meeting now stands adjourned.